Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. We have some old friends here rejoining us. Kelly's here, and Elena's here, and of course Honest John's here, but he's always here. You know, he's a pillar. He's a pillar. Welcome to all of you out there in cyberspace. We're back with our. Seems like our connection and our phone is working good again. So let's launch right into it. Srila Sanatana Goswami's prayers in glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastabdi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvandotitaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvatevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madgudo Man Mahadana Man Nistadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Sadhu sadhuta dayin atini chotata kada hanamuncha gadachin mam premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, we reached chapter 81 of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, 10th canto. The Lord blesses Sudama Brahmana. Beautiful. We've heard how Sudama was actually an old friend of Krishna who attended Gurukula with him in the ashram of Sandipani Muni. And they had all kinds of adventures together. So Sudama ended up being a very, very elevated Brahmana, but very poor. So poor that he didn't have any money and his wife there was nothing to cook for her husband. So she told him, look, your friend is Krishna. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why don't you go meet him and then, maybe he'll give you something. So anyway, he went and he took a little bit of chipped rice in his cloth. That's the only thing they had, chipped rice. Flat rice, they call it in America. And so he went, but he wasn't thinking of anything but, I'll just go to be with Krishna. So he forgot to ask for something. So now we're going to find out what happened, even though he didn't ask for anything. Haribol Sarva. The Lord blesses Sudama Brahmana. This chapter describes how Lord Krishna ate a morsel of the flat rice brought by his friend Sudama, and bestowed upon him wealth greater than that of the King of Heaven. In the course of his loving talks with his friend Sudama, Lord Krishna said, "My dear Brahmana, have you brought any gift for me from home? I regard very significant even the smallest offering from my loving devotee." But the poor Brahmana was ashamed to present Krishna with his meager gift of flat rice. However, since Lord Krishna is the super soul dwelling in all hearts, he knew why Sudama had come to visit. So he grabbed the bundle of flat rice Sudama was hiding and ate a handful of it with great pleasure. He was about to eat a second morsel when Rukmini Devi stopped him. Feeling as if he had gone back to Godhead, Sudama spent that night comfortably in Lord Krishna's palace, and the next morning he set off for home. As he passed along the highway, he thought of how fortunate he was to have been so honored by Sri Krishna. Absorbed in this meditation, Sudama arrived at the place where his home used to be, and he was struck with great wonder. Instead of his broken down hovel, he saw a series of opulent palaces. While he stood astonished, a group of beautiful men and women came forward to greet him with singing and music. The Brahmana's wife, wonderfully adorned with celestial jewelry, came out of the palace and welcomed him with great love and reverence. Sudama entered his home together with her, thinking that this extraordinary transformation must have been due to the Supreme Lord's mercy upon him. From then on, Sudama lived his life amidst lavish wealth, yet he maintained his mood of detachment and constantly chanted the glories of Lord Krishna. In a short time, he broke off all bonds of bodily attachment and attained to the kingdom of God. Text 1 and 2. Shukadeva Goswami said, Lord Hari, Krishna, perfectly knows the hearts of all living beings, and he is especially devoted to the Brahmanas. While the Supreme Lord, the goal of all saintly persons, conversed in this way with the best of the twice-born, he laughed and spoke the following words, to that dear friend of his, the Brahmana, Sudama, all the while smiling and looking upon him with affection. Purport. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, the words Sarva Bhuta Mano Bhigya indicate that since Lord Krishna knows the minds of everyone, he could tell at once that his friend Sudama had brought some flat rice for him and was ashamed to present it. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti's further explanation of this verse, Lord Krishna smiled at this moment, thinking, "Yes, I'm going to make you show what you brought for me." His smile then turned to laughter as he thought, "How long are you going to keep this precious gift hidden in your cloth?" Krishna glanced toward the bundle hidden inside his friend's garment, telling Sudama by his loving glance, "The veins showing through your emaciated sin and your ragged clothes astonish everyone present, but these symptoms of poverty will last only until tomorrow morning." He's thinking that. Although Lord Krishna is Bhagavan, the Supreme, independent Lord, he is always pleased to reciprocate with those who are Priya, his cherished servants. As the indulgent patron of the Brahmana class, he especially enjoys favoring Brahmanas who are additionally qualified by unconditional devotion unto him. Text 3. The Supreme Lord said, "O Brahmana, what gift have you brought for me from home? I regard as great even the smallest gift offered by my devotees in pure love. But even great offerings presented by non-devotees do not please me. Text 4. If one offers me with love, a devotion, if one offers me with love and devotion, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. Purport. These famous words are also spoken by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita 9:26. The translation and word meanings here are taken from Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. In the context of the current episode of Sudama's visit to Dwarka, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti has kindly continued his explanation of Lord Krishna's statements. This verse is a reply to Sudama's anxiety that his bringing such an unfit offering was ill-considered. The use of the words bhaktya, priyachchati, and bhaktuparitam may seem redundant since they both mean offered with devotion. But bhaktya can indicate how the Lord reciprocates the devotional mood of whoever offers him something with love. In other words, Lord Krishna here declares that his reciprocation in a pure loving exchange is not dependent on the external quality of what is offered. Krishna says, something may or may not be impressive and pleasing in its own right, but when my devotee offers it to me in devotion, with the expectation that I will enjoy it, it gives me great pleasure. In this regard, I make no distinctions, no discrimination. The word ashnami, I eat, implies that Lord Krishna eats even a flower which is supposed to be smelled, bewildered as he is by the ecstatic love he feels for his devotee. Someone might then question the Lord, so will you refuse an offering made to you by a devotee or some other deity? The Lord answers, yes, I will refuse to eat it. This the Lord states by the phrase prayatatmanaha, implying only by devotional service to me can one become pure in heart. Text 5. Shukadeva Goswami continued, even after being addressed in this way, O king, the Brahmana felt too embarrassed to offer his palmfuls of flat rice to the husband of the goddess of fortune. He simply kept his head bowed in shame. Purport. According to Acharya Vishwanath Chakravarti, the description here of Krishna as the husband of the goddess of fortune implies that Sudama questioned himself. How can the Lord of Sri eat this hard stale rice? By bowing his head, the Brahmana revealed his meditation. My dear master, please do not make me ashamed. Even if you request it from me repeatedly, I will not give this to you. I have made up my mind. But the Lord countered with his own thought. The intention you had fixed in your mind while coming here must not be frustrated, for you are my devotee. Text 6 and 7. Being the direct witness in the hearts of all living entities, all living beings, Lord Krishna fully understood why Sudama had come to see him. Thus he thought, in the past, my friend has never worshipped me out of a desire for material opulence, but now he comes to me to satisfy his chaste and devoted wife. I will give him riches that even the immortal demigods cannot obtain. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti comments that the Lord momentarily wondered, how has it come about, despite my omniscience, that this devotee of mine has fallen into such poverty? Then, quickly understanding the situation, he spoke to himself the words related in this verse. But someone might point out that Sudama should not have been so poverty-stricken, since appropriate enjoyment comes as a byproduct of service to God, even for a devotee who has no ulterior motives. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9:22. Ananyas chintyanto mam ye janak prayupasate tesham nityabhayuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack, and I preserve what they have. In response to this point, a distinction must be made between two kinds of renounced devotees. One kind is inimical to sense gratification, and the other is indifferent to it. The Supreme Lord does not force sense gratification upon the devotee who is extremely averse to worldly enjoyments. This is seen among such great renouncers as Jad Bharat. On the other hand, the Lord may give limitless wealth and power to a devotee who is neither repelled nor attracted by material things, such as Prahlad Maharaj. Up to this point in his life, Sudama Brahmana was totally averse to sense gratification. But now, out of compassion for his faithful wife, and also because he hankered to have Krishna's audience, he went to beg from the Lord. Text 8. Thinking like this, the Lord snatched from the Brahmana's garment the grains of flat rice tied up in an old piece of cloth, and exclaimed, "What is this?" Text 9. "My friend, you have brought this for me? Have you brought this for me? It gives me extreme pleasure. Indeed, these few grains of flat rice will satisfy not only me, but also the entire universe." Purport. Srila Prabhupada writes in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is understood from this statement that Krishna, being the original source of everything, is the root of the entire creation. As watering the root of a tree immediately distributes water to every part of the tree, so an offering made to Krishna, or any action done for Krishna, is to be considered the highest welfare work for everyone, because the benefit of such an offering is distributed throughout the creation. Love for Krishna is distributed to all living entities. Text 10. After saying this, the Supreme Lord ate one palmful and was about to eat a second when the devoted goddess Rukmini took hold of his hand. Purport. Queen Rukmini took hold of Krishna's hand to prevent him from eating any more of the flat rice. According to Sripad Sridhar Swami, with this gesture she meant to tell the Lord, "This much of your grace is sufficient to assure anyone vast riches, which are merely the play of my glance. But please do not force me to surrender myself to this Brahmana, as will happen if you eat one more handful." Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that by taking hold of the Lord's hand, Rukmini implied, "If you eat all of this wonderful treat your friend brought from his house, what will I have left for my friends, co-wives, servants, and myself? There will be not enough left to distribute even one grain to each of us." And to her maidservant companion she said, by her gesture, "This hard rice will upset my Lord's tender stomach." Srila Prabhupada comments that when food is offered to Lord Krishna with love and devotion, and he is pleased and accepts it from the devotee, Rukmini Devi, the goddess of fortune, becomes so greatly obliged to the devotee that she has to personally go to the devotee's home and turn it into the most opulent home in the world. If one feeds Narayana sumptuously, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, automatically becomes a guest in one's house, which means that one's home becomes opulent. Text 11. Queen Rukmini said, "This is more than enough, O soul of the universe, to secure him an abundance of all kinds of wealth in this world and the next. After all, one's prosperity depends simply on your satisfaction." Text 12. Shukadev Goswami continued, "The Brahmana spent that night in Lord Achyuta's palace after eating and drinking to his full satisfaction. He felt as if he had gone to the spiritual world." Text 13. The next day, Sudama set off for home while being honored by Lord Krishna, the self-satisfied maintainer of the universe. The Brahmana felt greatly delighted, "O my dear king," as he walked along the road. Purport. We are here reminded that Lord Krishna maintains the supply of desirable objects for the whole universe. Therefore it is to be understood that he was about to manifest for Sudama opulence greater than Indra's. Being swasukha, perfectly complete in his own bliss, the Lord has an unlimited capacity for bestowing gifts. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the word adivandita indicates that Sri Krishna accompanied Sudama on the road for a short distance and finally parted with the Brahmana after bowing down to him and speaking some respectful words. Text 14. Although he had apparently received no wealth from Lord Krishna, Sudama was too shy to beg for it on his own. He simply returned home, feeling perfectly satisfied to have had the Supreme Lord's audience. Text 15. Sudama thought, Lord Krishna is known to be devoted to the Brahmanas, and now I have personally seen this devotion. Indeed, he who carries the goddess of fortune on his chest has embraced the poorest beggar. Text 16. Who am I, a sinful, poor friend of a Brahmana? And who is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full in 6 opulences? Nonetheless, he has embraced me with his 2 arms. Purport. This translation is from Srila Prabhupada's English rendering of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 7, 143. Sudama was so humble that he considered his poverty to be his own fault, as a result of sin. Such a mentality is in accord with the saying, Daridya dosho guna rashi nashi. The discrepancy of being poor ruins heaps of good qualities. Text 17. He treated me just like one of his brothers, making me sit on the bed of his beloved consort. And because I was fatigued, his queen personally fanned me with a yak-tailed chamara. 18. Although he is the Lord of all demigods and the object of worship for all Brahmanas, he worshipped me as if I were a demigod myself, massaging my feet and rendering other humble services. 19. Devotional service to his lotus feet is the root cause of all the perfections a person can find in heaven, in liberation, in the subterranean regions, and on earth. 20. Thinking, if this poor wretch suddenly becomes rich, he will forget me in his intoxicating happiness. The compassionate Lord did not grant me even a little wealth. Purport. Sudama's statement that Lord Krishna bestowed on him not even a little wealth may also be taken to mean that instead of giving him wealth that was aburi, slight, the Lord in fact gave him the immense treasure of his association. This alternate meaning has been suggested by Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti, text 21 to 23. Shukadeva Goswami continued, thinking thus to himself, Sudama finally came to the place where his home stood, but that place was now crowded on all sides with towering celestial palaces, the combined brilliance of the sun, fire. But that place was now crowded on all sides with towering celestial palaces, rivaling the combined brilliance of the sun, fire, and the moon. There were splendorous courtyards and gardens, each filled with flocks of cooing birds and beautified by ponds in which Kumuda, Amboja, Kalara, and Utpala lotuses grew. Finely attired men and doe-eyed women stood in attendance. Sudama wondered, what is all this? Whose property is this? How has this all come about? Purport: simplicity. As he continued to ponder in this way, the beautiful men and maidservants, as effulgent as demigods, came forward to greet their greatly fortunate master with loud song and instrumental music.
There was no purport.
Was there?
There was.
I missed it?
Yes, there's a small purport.
Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami gives the sequence of the Brahmana's thoughts. First, seeing a great, unfamiliar effulgence, he thought, what is this? Then, noting the palaces, he asked himself, whose place is this? And recognizing it as his own, he wondered, how has it become so transformed? 24. As he continued to ponder in this way, the beautiful men and maidservants, as effulgent as demigods, came forward to greet their greatly fortunate master with loud song and instrumental music. Purport. As explained by Acharya Vishwanath Chakravarti, the word pratyagrinan, they acknowledged him in turn, indicates that first Sudama accepted the servants within his mind, deciding, my Lord must want me to have them. And in response to the visible change in his attitude, they approached him as their master. So the master has to have a certain mentality as well as the servants for the whole thing to work together. 25. When she heard that her husband had arrived, the Brahmana's wife quickly came out of the house in a jubilant flurry. She resembled the goddess of fortune herself, emerged from her divine abode. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami points out that since Lord Krishna had turned Sudama's home into a heavenly abode, everyone living there now possessed beautiful bodies and attire appropriate to the residents of heaven. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti adds this insight. The night before, Sudama's poor emaciated wife had been sleeping in rags under a crumbling roof. But when she woke up in the morning, she found herself and her house wonderfully changed. Only for a moment was she confused. She then realized that this opulence was the Lord's gift to her husband, who must be on his way home. Thus she prepared to greet him. Text 26. When the chaste lady saw her husband, her eyes filled with tears of love and eagerness. As she held her eyes closed, she solemnly bowed down to him, and in her heart she embraced him. 27. Sudama was amazed to see his wife, shining forth in the midst of maidservants adorned with jeweled lockets. She looked as effulgent as a demigoddess in her celestial airplane. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti explains that up to now, the Supreme Lord had kept the Brahmana in his wretched state so that his wife could recognize him. Text 28. With pleasure, he took his wife with him and entered his house, where there were hundreds of gem-studded pillars, just as in the palace of Lord Mahendra. Purport. Srila Vishwanath comments that Sudama was simply astonished at the sight of his wife, as he wondered, who is this demigod's wife who has approached such a fallen soul as me? The maidservants informed him, "This is indeed your wife." At that very moment, Sudama's body became young and beautiful, bedecked in fine clothing and jewelry. The word prita here indicates that these changes gave him considerable pleasure. Text 29 to 32. In Sudama's home were beds as soft and white as the foam of milk, with bedsteads made of ivory and ornamented with gold. There were also couches with golden legs, as well as royal chamara fans, golden thrones, soft cushions, and gleaming canopies hung with strings of pearls. Upon the walls of sparkling crystal glass, inlaid with precious emeralds, shone jeweled lamps, and the women in the palace were all adorned with precious gems. As he viewed this luxurious opulence of all varieties, the Brahmana calmly reasoned to himself about his unexpected prosperity. Sudama thought, I have always been poor. Certainly the only possible way that such an unfortunate person as myself could become suddenly rich is that Lord Krishna, the supremely opulent chief of the Yadu dynasty, has glanced upon me. 34. After all, my friend Krishna, the most exalted of the Dasharas and the enjoyer of unlimited wealth, noticed that I secretly intended to beg from him. Thus, even though he said nothing about it, when I stood before him, he actually bestowed upon me the most abundant riches. In this way, he acted just like a merciful rain cloud. Purport. Sri Krishna is Bodhi Bhoja, the unlimited enjoyer. He did not tell Sudama how he was going to fulfill his unspoken request because, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti, he was thinking at the time, my dear friend is giving me these grains of rice, which are greater than all the treasures I own. Even though in his own house he had no such gift to bring me, he took the trouble of begging it from a neighbor. Therefore, it is only proper that I give him something more valuable than all my possessions. But nothing is equal to or greater than what I possess, so all I can do is give him such meager things as the treasures of Indra, Brahma, and the other demigods. Embarrassed at being unable to properly reciprocate his devotee's offering, Lord Krishna bestowed his favor on the Brahmana silently. The Lord acted just like a magnanimous rain cloud which provides the necessities of life for everyone, near and far, but feels ashamed that its rain is too insignificant a gift to give in return for the abundant offerings that farmers make to it. Out of shame, the cloud may wait until night time when the farmers are asleep before watering their fields. The chief of the Dashara clan, with whom Lord Krishna is identified in this verse, was especially renowned for their generosity. Text 35. The Lord considers even his greatest benedictions to be insignificant, while he magnifies even a small service rendered to him by his well-wishing devotee. Thus, with pleasure, the Supreme Lord accepted a single palmful of the flat rice I brought him. 36. The Lord is the supremely compassionate reservoir of all transcendental qualities. Life after life, may I serve him with love, friendship, and sympathy. And may I cultivate such firm attachment for him by the precious association of his devotees. Purport. As explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti, Saridam here signifies affection toward him who is so compassionate to his devotees. Sakyam is affinity manifested in the desire to live in his company. Maitri is the attitude of intimate comradeship, and Dasyam is the urge to do service. 37. To a devotee who lacks spiritual insight, the Supreme Lord will not grant the wonderful opulences of this world, kingly power, and material assets. Indeed, in his infinite wisdom, the unborn Lord well knows how the intoxication of pride can cause the downfall of the wealthy. Purport. As explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti, the humble Brahmana, Sudama, considered himself unworthy of the Supreme Lord's most rare and valuable benediction, pure devotional service. He reasoned that if he had any true devotion, the Lord would have granted him perfect, unflinching devotion rather than material riches and servants he had received. Lord Krishna would have protected a more serious devotee by denying him such distractions. The Lord will give a sincere but less intelligent devotee not as much material wealth as he desires, but only what will promote his devotional progress. Sudama thought, a great saint like Prahlad Maharaj can avoid becoming contaminated by immeasurable wealth, power, and fame, but I must always be wary of temptation in my new situation. We may understand that this humble attitude assured Sudama Vipra final success in his execution of Bhakti Yoga by the standard process of hearing and repeating the glories of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Text 38. Oops. Shukadeva Goswami continued, thus firmly fixing his determination by means of his spiritual intelligence, Sudama remained absolutely devoted to Lord Krishna, the shelter of all living beings. Free from avarice, he enjoyed, together with his wife, the sense pleasures that had been bestowed upon him, always with the idea of eventually renouncing all sense gratification. Thank you so much. Text 39. Lord Hari is the God of all gods, the master of all sacrifices, and the supreme ruler. But he accepts the saintly Brahmanas as his masters, and so there exists no deity higher than them. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti points out that even though Sri Krishna is the supreme ruler of creation, he accepts the Brahmana as his masters, the Brahmanas as his masters, even though he is the God of all gods. The Brahmanas are his deities, and even though he is the Lord of all sacrifices, he performs sacrifices to worship them. Text 40. Thus seeing how the unconquerable Supreme Lord is nonetheless conquered by his own servants, the Lord's dear Brahmana friend felt the remaining knots of material attachment within his heart being cut by the force of his constant meditation on the Lord. In a short time, he attained Lord Krishna's supreme abode, the destination of great saints. Purport. Sudama's earthly fortune has been described, and now Shukadeva Goswami describes the treasure the Brahmana enjoyed in the next world. Sri Jiva Goswami mentions that Sudama's last trace of illusion lay in the subtle pride of being a renounced Brahmana. Oh, I got it now. Huh? This trace was also destroyed by his contemplating the Supreme Lord's submission to his devotees. So, and then I guess you could say that because he was still proud of being, proud and renounced not having anything, Krishna gave him all these things to crush that pride. Very interesting. 41. He knows exactly what we need and what we don't need, and he arranges it. The Lord always shows Brahmanas special favor. Anyone who hears, I'll repeat, anyone who hears this account of the Supreme Lord's kindness to Brahmanas will come to develop love for the Lord and thus become freed from the bondage of material work. Purport. In the introduction to the chapter of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that describes this pastime, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada comments, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supersoul of all living entities, knows everyone's heart very well. He is especially inclined to the Brahmana devotees. Lord Krishna is also called Brahmanya Deva, which means that he is worshipped by the Brahmanas. Therefore it is understood that a devotee who is fully surrendered under the Supreme Personality of Godhead has already acquired the position of a Brahmana. Without becoming a Brahmana, one cannot approach the Supreme Brahman, Lord Krishna. Krishna is especially concerned with vanquishing the distress of his devotees, and he is the only shelter of pure devotees. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 81st chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled, The Lord Blesses Sudama Brahmana. Haribo! I'd like to tell you an anecdotal story. It's not an anecdotal story, it's an actual fact. This actually happened. When I joined this movement, I was married, and my wife was a saint, but she didn't know it, and neither did I. And so I said, anyway, I told you the story how I got the books, and I went north to San Francisco, and Prabhupada arrived on the same day, and I saw Prabhupada that same night. That was it. I was finished. My material existence was finished. I came back down a completely different person. I was whistling and doing the vacuuming, and things I'd never done before. I was just a lazy bum musician, before. So anyway, we ended up moving to San Francisco, and I would go every morning and drive all the way across the city to go to Mangal Arati, and she would stay in the bed. She didn't know what was going on, like getting up this early and leaving. She was like going crazy, actually. And I would bring back the Maha sweets, and she said, no, what do they put in the food, to make you like this, Anyway, she didn't say that to me, but I could tell that's what she was thinking. So then, one day, finally, I convinced her to take some khichdi or something, and she took it, and this is nice. And she finally agreed to come to the temple, so we went to the temple the first time together, and we walked into the temple in San Francisco, this 1972, and the temple room was all white. The floors were white, the walls were white, the ceiling was white. There was a temple, the altar was beautiful, and then Prabhupada's Vyasasana. and the walls on each side were lined with paintings, original paintings. In those days, there were all nothing but original paintings. So the first painting on the left, guess what it was? It was Sudama Brahman, Krishna washing the feet of Sudama Brahmana. And she looked at that picture, and she told me afterwards that the whole room turned blue, and she became a devotee, just like that. She thought, Krishna's washing the feet of this, and she just, her heart melted, and she became a devotee. So I owe a lot to Sudama Brahmana. Because she became so advanced, I could take a sannyas. I got her blessings. Hare Krishna. Anyway, that's my anecdote for the pastime. Okay, we're going to have our daily dose of our open mic. Anyone who's something stuck in the mind that you heard, you want to reflect on it for us, or
it's too scary.
Too scary.
Because it's too similar. So
Oh.
it's like, I don't know.
It's freaky. We call it, when I was your age, we used to call it freaky. I don't know what they call it now. Probably sick or this or that, or whatever they woke.
Woke is not it.
Oh, something else. That's okay. I don't know what moke means, but we're trying to wake up. Okay, Prana, you start us off, and then Kelly's going to get her courage up, and then she's going to go ahead and reflect.
I just thought, could I read something from Nectar of Devotion
Please.
that goes along with
That's
pastime?
what this thing is about.
It's one of the qualities of Krishna, further explained. It's in chapter 22. And this quality is controlled by love. Krishna becomes obliged to the loving spirit of the devotee and not exactly to the service rendered. No one can serve Krishna completely. He is so complete and self-sufficient that he has no need of any service from the devotee. It is the devotee's attitude of love and affection for Krishna that makes him obliged. A very nice example of this obligatory behavior was manifested when Sudama Vipra went to Krishna's palace. Sudama Vipra had been a class friend of Krishna's, and due to his poverty, he was induced by his wife to see Krishna to request some aid. When Sudama Vipra reached Krishna's palace, Krishna received him very well, and both he and his wife washed the feet of Sudama Vipra, showing respect to the Brahmana. Remembering his loving affairs with Sudama in their childhood, Krishna began to shed tears while receiving him. So, I guess I just thought I'd share that because it was to the anecdote you shared.
Yes, that's exactly right. Exactly right.
And also it said in one of the last verses that Sudama became perfectly purified by remembering this quality of Krishna's, how he was conquered by his devotees.
Yes. And he is actually conquered by his devotees. It's not that he's just doing it in order to set an example for the rest of us. He actually, remember when we read those prayers by Bhaktivinoda Thakur that were quoted by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur just before he left? How he actually felt about himself? I mean, it's inconceivable. There's someone as exalted as that who did the level of service that he did, to spread Krishna consciousness and reawaken the whole Indian subcontinent. I mean, it was just way off the charts, Could think like that he did, that he thought he was so sinful. And anyway. Yeah, when a person's actually humble, then Krishna's heart melts. And he cannot control himself. He becomes controlled by that love. And one of the things that happens is when he can't control himself, he just gives more than the devotee can imagine. Okay, Honest John, you're going to give us a little nectar over here.
Well, I guess I'll continue on the same vein that we were going. At the last part, it's like, therefore it is understood that a devotee who is fully surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead has already acquired the position of Brahmana. Without becoming a Brahmana, no one can approach the Supreme Brahman, Lord Krishna. He's especially concerned with vanquishing the distress of his devotees. And he is the only shelter of his devotees. And then Sudama says kind of like a prayer before this in 36. The Lord is supremely compassionate, is the supremely compassionate reservoir of all the transcendental qualities. Life after life, may I serve him with love, friendship, and sympathy, and may I cultivate such a firm attachment for him by the precious association of his devotees. So, his devotees are Brahmanas, and like I said, it just shows how important association is in order to, get the Krishna consciousness,
I just heard Srila Prabhupada say that when a person asks, how do I get, devotional qualities? And he said, you associate with someone who has them. It's the principle of association.
Right.
And another really important point about what you just said is that when it says that the devotee is automatically a Brahmana, it's meant to make this point that even a person who doesn't look like a Brahmana, who may not be in the cultural, trappings of a Brahmana, if that person has sincere devotion to Krishna, he's better than a Brahmana. Even though the Brahmana may know all the rituals and the way they dress and the way they act and the position they have in human society and all of that, just the simplest person, such as our honest John, who's got a heart of gold, in case you didn't notice, salt of the earth, is Brahmana. And I'm saying that with sincere affection because I know who you are and where you're headed. And even though you're not even initiated yet, you have that it factor. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
So a devotee is as good as a Brahmana, even if they don't, in the ordinary sense of the word, in the human culture, the minimum culture, have that position. That's Krishna's promise. Yes, old local sage.
Kalakantaru told an interesting story. He was temporarily the temple president in Houston when this property was purchased. And where Garanga Hall was there was a warehouse or a factory or something. It was kind of a rundown church. So he helped buy the property and was here for about a year. Then he went somewhere else. Then years later he came back to Houston. In the meantime, one wealthy man had left a lot of money to the temple. So he came back and saw the temple really transformed. And when he saw the temple, when you go around the parikrama around the temple, there's a beautiful wall mural of Sudama Brahmana.
Yes.
And Krishna washing his feet and all that.
Yeah.
So Kalakanta got this amazing realization that when he saw that, that the temple had transformed from him. It had been kind of tough times and he was the president, and because he was detached from the whole thing and came back, he saw that transformation. Then he saw that Sudama Brahmana mural. And
That's interesting because I'm laughing because he's an old friend, Kalakanta, and his godbrother's conception of him is kind of like a simple Brahmana type, Not one that would be, like as opposed to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who could manage the world, and do all those things. So it really fit that he would, come to that, think like that. you know, because he was so simple, and then it came back, and all of a sudden, but his devotional service obviously had something to do with that. Yeah, obviously. Nice. Thank you, Sarah. That was beautiful. Very wonderful. What else we got?
We've got the online question.
Online question. Let's hear them.
Rasa Rasika.
Rasa Risika, Haribol, I still owe you one. I've been a little busy the last couple of days. Sorry.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. In a departure lecture in Caracas, is that?
Caracas,
Caracas, 1970.
Venezuela.
Hmm.
It's the capital of Venezuela.
Okay,
Caracas.
Caracas.
Javi is from Caracas, Venezuela.
1975,
Mm.
Srila Prabhupada said, "Continue your devotional service very faithfully and rigidly. Then, in this life, you will be able to see Krishna face to face. Can you explain how the Lord can appear to us face to face in this lifetime?"
Krishna is already face to face with us. It's just we're not seeing him. First of all, he's in our hearts as the super soul, and from there he can come out and appear in any form he wants, according to the inclination of the devotee to love him. And aside from that, he's in every single atom of the universe. And aside from that, all the energy that's around us is a transformation of his energy, which is not different than him. It's not him in a personal sense, but it's him in terms of his energy. So he can appear from anywhere, like Prahlad Maharaj. You know, when Hiranyakashipu, he really wound Hiranyakashipu up, you know, he appeared in a form that Hiranyakashipu couldn't figure out, what the heck is this, you know? And yet all the promises that he had, you know, and that Brahma had made to him in order for him to think that he had become, you know, infallible or, you know, eternal, were kept by Krishna. And so, you know, he wanted to wind his son up. So he asked Prahlad, so where is this God of yours? Is he here in this pillar? And Prahlad said, yes, he's everywhere. And then he took his sword or something, he smashed it, or his fist or something, he smashed the pillar. And then all of a sudden this sound came out of the pillar that was the most terrifying sound anybody had ever heard before. And then Lord Nrsimha just came bursting out of the pillar. So he was there already. He's everywhere. He can appear from anywhere, anytime, with any form he wants. That's what it means to be all-powerful. And the form he appears will be perfect. Perfectly in tune with our love and desire. Okay. Anything else?
Well, maybe just one more thing. Is it like, you know, like you said, Krishna is all around us, but we don't have the eyes to see him with, but he's there.
Yes. Just like Arjuna asked Krishna to show him how it is that he enters into this material world. In other words, he asked to see his universal form as it is Krishna, his energy. And then Krishna said to him, you can't see it with your eyes, but I'll give you eyes to see it. I give you divine eyes. Pashyame Yogameshwaram. And then he could see. And he was terrified. He could see everything in the universe, past, present, and future, while standing in one place. The whole universe. And he was terrified. And finally, after offering all the prayers and everything, he said, okay, enough's enough. Then Krishna said, yes, now, be peaceful and hear. And they showed him his original form. And then he was happy. And then Krishna said, this form is even more difficult to see. You can't get it by austerity or penance or great knowledge or wealth or anything material. Only by loving devotion, loving service.
You could see Krishna just by looking at these devotees and everybody around. You know, you can see how Krishna has changed the lives of everybody, and how these people wouldn't be here unless Krishna was powerful. So, anyway, I appreciate that. And
Didn't I tell you?
Appreciate everybody here.
Didn't I tell you?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, okay.
It makes too much sense.
It makes too much sense. Yes.
Usually things don't make sense.
Yeah, there you go. Kelly's giving us some realizations over here. It makes too much sense, and it's making her head hurt because things aren't supposed to make such sense. Yeah, we spend our whole lifetime trying to figure things out, and we figured out that nothing makes sense, and then all of a sudden it makes sense, and it, as we used to say in the old days, blows our mind. I think they still understand that. Even the Generation Z understands that, Okay, we'll stop for tonight. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sudama Brahmana, our favorite story, or one of our favorite stories. All glories to that wonderful Krishna. All glories to the wife of Sudama Brahmana for being so humble and getting him to do that. And Srimad-Bhagavatam ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. See us tomorrow at the same time, same place, same station, here in Radha Lane. Hare Krishna.